Lance doesn't like your voice. And they said, we want you to stick around in the studio and try a few options, and we'll see if there's anything he likes. So I stayed in the studio for another 2 hours working on options with this. This guy was really cool working with me and trying to help me pick a voice. And they said, well, we'll send these to Lance and see what he says. Don't hear anything for a week, and we're supposed to go back in and record another episode. My agent says, I don't know what's going on, so just go to studio. And I go to studio, and Lance isn't there. He apparently has gone back to LA. And I sweated it out every episode for 26 episodes. He never came back. He never said a thing. It wasn't until a year later, I'm walking down the street in Toronto, and I hear somebody yell out, "Hey, Michelangelo!" And I think, that's kind of random. Maybe they need me. And I turn around, and it was the initial guy who had hired me. He was in Toronto doing a show. And funnily enough, he's like, how come you haven't auditioned for this show? Because I was living in Toronto at that time. And I said, I don't know, my agent's going to get fired. Which he did. And I wound up booking that new show with him. And then we sit down one time having a drink, and he's like, yeah, remember that time Lance was giving you the hard time about your voice in Ninja Turtles? I'm like, remember it, and nightmares about it. He goes, yeah, it's because before we started casting, we got drunk one night, and he said, hey, wouldn't it be great if we made Michelangelo a black guy?
Oh my God.
And they're like, yeah, that'd be funny. And then he just had it in his head. He said, when you walked in the room and you weren't a black guy, he was like, no, not gonna work. Not gonna work for you. I was like, that is so random and weird. And he could have said, try and make it sound like a brother or something, but no.
Oh my gosh. So what is it like, to go away from voice acting for a second, you also have been in Stargate, which I'm a huge fan of Stargate. Love Stargate to death. What was it like being in Stargate?
It was really cool. Stargate was one of those great movies that became a series.
Yeah.
And I really loved the movie. And I played in Stargate SG-1. I played 2 different characters in 2 different seasons. And they were very different characters. The first one I had long hair, and I was a staff fighter. And I got to get into a great staff fight with another martial arts guy that I knew really well. And the second one, I was something had a V painted on my forehead, and I took I was a bomber. I strapped a bomb to my chest and went through the Stargate.
Here's your motivation.
And then Stargate Atlantis, I went out for the weapons officer in Stargate Atlantis, and auditioned against. There was men, women, people of all races. They had no idea what they wanted for this weapons officer, and I wound up getting the role. And they said, okay, well, right now it's called weapons officer, but we're obviously going to give you your name because you're in several episodes. And on the day, they'd forgotten to give me a name, but they had a bunch of name tags that they had just stuck on other people, on extras in the show. And they were names of the real crew that made the show, like, the electrics and the grips and the gaffers and people that weren't actors. And then, so they said, okay, well, here, you're Dave Kleinman now. And I was stuck. I'm Dave Kleinman for the rest of the series. Captain Dave, all right, man. And then I did 1 episode of Stargate Universe. So Robert, the guest here as well, and I are on his distinguished list where only 18 actors in the world have been on all 3 Stargate series. And that includes the leads, Rick Anderson.
Tell the story about the staff fight. What happens?
So when I'm doing this big elaborate staff fight, Richard Dean Anderson is supposed to run in and prevent me from killing this guy that I'm fighting with, because we're in a training exercise, but we train to the death, and he's supposed to run in and stop me with his gun as I bring my staff down. But on the first day, he comes running in and he trips, goes head first into his gun, into the ground, kind of bounces off the ground. Everybody kind of stifled a little laugh because you're not allowed to laugh at the lead. And the director knew me. This is before the times of digital media or really much of the internet. And they gave me a video of it and said, hey, here, this is kind of funny. Don't show it to anybody. That video has never gotten out anywhere. But it was kind of funny. And now they just filmed it.
Give me that camera.
Give me that camera.
Smash with a hammer.
Don't put any of this on digital media.
So, any other questions? Any questions? Yeah, go ahead.
What was it like recording at Scafoni? We did a lot of drinking in that movie. Look, I can fly. I loved that show. It was beautiful to me. I loved relationship between Vaughn and Hitomi, and just my evil brother, and it was I really liked that show. It was one of my favorites actually. I wish it was more famous or played longer.
So I'll ask a question first, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So if you could voice any character in any genre, who would it be?
Every character I auditioned for and didn't get. I always wanted to play Wolverine.
Oh, yeah.
I thought he was schnicked, Yeah, bub.
Oh, yeah.
But, yeah, that would have been...
Instead you ended up as the lamest X-Men.
Yeah, I know. I did always want to play Iron Man as well until I played him in Marvel Knights, something Knights, but I did play Iron Man a couple years ago. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, and Spider-Man. Spider-Man, that's my favorite.
Yeah.
You hinted at earlier about some discontent about Vision of Escaflowne. Was there anything about Gundam Wing or Gundam Seed Destiny they did that you wish they had done in Vision of Escaflowne?
Is there something that they did in those shows?
No, you were saying that you felt it got butchered.
Uh-huh.
Did you feel that those shows got butchered?
Not that I know. Those I thought went to video first, as did Escaflowne, and I watched a lot of Escaflowne. And then when it went on series, and actually the movie, well, a bunch of the cast went to watch the movie, and at the end of it, we're like, "What the hell just happened?" We didn't understand it. The movie didn't make any sense to us, and so I didn't really notice anything in the other shows. So.
Do you find that happens, that you do your voiceover work, you do your job, and then you watch the finished product and you just go, what? Like, does that happen very often?
Yeah, and it happens on camera too. I did a show one time where I had this really intimate scene where I've got this gun trained on this guy. I'm like, I'm gonna kill him, and I think they were short of time because they cut out all the dramatic pausing, and it just like. The breaths and everything that's important into a scene to make it real, and it's just, the finished product looked ridiculous to me. And I was like, what are you doing? You destroyed all my good acting!
But does that happen? Does that happen where you're on a project, and I mean, everybody always thinks that whatever they're working on is going to win an Oscar. But do you ever get on a project and you just go, oh man, this is a friggin' dumpster fire? I can tell. Does that happen very often?
Never. No, because you never really know until it's finished.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So, yeah.
Cool. Did you have a question?
Yes. How is it working with Inuyasha as Morocco?
He's just misunderstood. He just wants to be loved.
That's kind of true.
No, it was great. I mean, he was hilarious to me. It was very funny. I was surprised that was a cartoon for kids.
Wow. It originally wasn't.
Yeah, it was obviously, but they're a lot more liberal in the Japanese world. Yes.
Yes, go ahead.
You were saying like when you did X-Men, like you didn't really know a lot about that, but like since those days, have you kind of like learned a bit more? As I know.
Oh, of course. Yeah, I mean,
I played Marvel Nemesis last week where you did the Human Torch.
I played the Human Torch in the X-Men video game. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Good call.
Nice. Well, yeah, of course. I mean, I learned as we went about all the characters, because in X-Men Evolution, pretty much all the characters were brought in, but as teenagers. So I learned about them. It was kind of the prequel, if you will, of how they became who they became. So yeah, through 5 years of being on the show, I definitely learned a lot about it, and then the movies now, and yeah.
So, I know myself, I'm not one to draw attention to myself. I like to be a more subdued character.
Oh, yes.
But the question I think that's on everyone's mind is, have you bought and played with your own action figures? Because you played all these characters.
I have bought all of my action figures that I could find. I have not taken them out of the package at all. And you want me to tell a story?
Yeah, I
don't
want to
you?
know the story.
I rented out a room in my house to one of my friends, and down on the ground floor, I'm one floor up, and my girlfriend and I were lying in bed, and we hear him come home late at night with a young lady, who we hear bellow, "Oh my God, who has all the action figures?" And he's like, "Oh, it's my roommate, he's a voice actor." I'm like, "That's totally lame. Oh my God." And he's like, no, he does the voice for them, and she still didn't think it was cool. So,
I like the fact that your cabin mate or your roommate traveled back in time to date a 1980s Valley girl.
well, I think he should stop dating 14-year-olds. I don't know.
Came through the Stargate with her from another universe. But seriously, you know, when you were talking about being a lawyer and, you know, you had these other things that could have happened to you, you know, isn't it funny to look back on your life and think, you know, that road, you know, if you hadn't walked by that theater department, if you hadn't just stuck your head and said, hey, you know, I'm kind of interested in this, you know, you could be sitting writing mortgages right now, eh?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
how does that feel?
It's like that movie Sliding Doors. Or
Yeah,
anything.
yeah,
Like, you know, there's always, you know, one door opens, one door closes, another door opens. There's all these things that happen. I heard a funny story, an analogy the other day, and this was before. I just got like, who's the Democratic candidate for
Bernie Sanders?
Bernie Sanders?
Oh, or Hillary Clinton.
Okay, Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
So there's a story. Bill and Hillary Clinton went back to her hometown, and they stopped off at a gas station. And there, pumping gas at the gas station, was her old high school boyfriend. And she said this to Bill, and Bill said, oh, can you imagine if you had stayed with him, where you'd be? She said, yeah, I'd be married to the President of the United States. Think about it. Think about it.
I got it. Political stuff.
Real.
Yeah. So any other questions or comments or anything you'd like to know? Yeah, go ahead.
Out of all the characters you've ever played, who is your favorites?
You know, it's hard to pick favorites. I love Von Fennell. I loved Michelangelo being my first job. I loved everything about Goku, even though it was the hardest job. I'd be like, oh, I gotta go do Goku, but you know, afterwards I'd be like, yeah, dude, I'm doing Goku, and it's like I still get the most love in the world from Goku.
Moroku all the way.
Urkel?
Moroku all the way.
Moroku is so much fun. I love the variety of characters. I would hate to be just one character all the time.
Yeah.
You know, it would be mundane. It's just like the reason why I like to do both voice and on camera and theater sometimes. You know, it's you know, mix it up and move all around. Keep life spicy and interesting.
Yeah, go ahead.
You were at yesterday's panel. You were talking about like the kind of bloopers you guys did, and like for Inuyasha and stuff. What other kind of bloopers did you have?
Yeah.
If like any variety and all that.
Bloopers, as in, you know, you're when you record in ADR, you're sitting there in the room. You got your script and you got the TV, and we have a beep system that tells you when to talk. And the beeps will go beep, 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 and where a phantom fourth beep would be, you start talking. So your line might say something like, wind tunnel, and it would go beep, 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 suckhole! And the director and everybody would laugh, and then, you know, it's something you're talking to Sango, and you're supposed to say, I'm sorry, Sango, I didn't mean it. And you say, I'm sorry, Sango, how about a smooch? You know, or like, French kissing is the best way to heal this, you know. We'd add funny lines they weren't expecting. And,
Yeah, do you have a question, sir? No?
Were
Okay.
there any other roles that you had to play that you hadn't been asked about? For example, was there anything you learned like from Yvonne the Yukon? Like, was there anything that you learned from one role that contributed to how you played another?
absolutely. I mean, everything is, the more, like I said, the more you do something in your field, the better you're going to be. So every role, you know, I would learn, and especially, you know, when you're doing prelay animation, you're sitting and you're working with all these great talents, and you learn so much from them. And you know, even watching somebody do a voice, it's funny. Listening to a voice is one thing, but once you watch somebody do a voice, you're like, oh, maybe if I contort myself that way, yeah, it's easy. You know, the first time I watched Trey Parker do Cartman, I'm like, oh, I can do Cartman like that. First time I watched somebody do Gonzo, I was like, oh, that's how you do Gonzo.
Wow.
Yeah,
I never thought of that. Like, I you know, again, don't know much about the industry, but I never thought about the physicality that goes into voice acting. Because I kind of thought you were like an easy boy, kind of laying back, having some chips and a beer, and you're like, yeah, look at him. You know,
yeah, that totally affects, you know, everything affects your voice. We have these articulators that really affect our voice, our teeth, our tongue, our lower jaw, the hard and soft palate. all these things we manipulate to use voice. But our body too is like, you know, if you're playing somebody who's a devil who's fallen from, you know, an angel that's fallen from heaven, you might adopt this body language like this, and it helps bring out that voice. Rather if you're up your legs, and it helps bring out that voice. It's not as pure as it comes. You know, if it just has to fight its way out of you. You know, it's just really
that's amazing. Like, I did not know the difference that would make. Like, really, because, I mean, my voiceover is more like, no, I'm not paying my bills, stop calling me beep. You know, but a voiceover like that, that's really astounding to me, the idea that contorting your body, and I mean, I guess we all know that, I mean, but to see you do it, that's really something.
Yeah, when you're a good character, you're like, oh, yeah, Conan, that's great. And if you're kind of a lazy character, you know, if you get your body lazy, your voice is just going to follow. It's like, wow, dude. You know?
All right, so we got time for one more question. Go ahead, sir.
Well, I was going to say, the reason I asked all those questions, I studied voice for 10 years.
Okay.
And is it true, like, did you...
Was it my voice you studied?
I did watch some other stuff growing up, but did you at any point do any formal singing training, and did that in any way help your voice acting?
Well, in theater school, we did voice training, which seriously, in the beginning, for the first few classes, it literally started with just lying on the ground and learning to breathe. Just learning to breathe properly, and then learning to talk with a cork in your mouth, like a cork, to be able to enunciate, and then learning how to, you know, speak from your diaphragm rather than from your chest. And there's a lot of that, and then learning how to do proper vocal warm-ups. And then, you know, I took some classes on doing actual animation. And then I did take singing training, but just because I like to sing and I want to sound better.
That's awesome. Well, you know what, folks? Thank you so much for attending. Remember, Kirby's noticed his table if you want some pictures or some autographs.
And so you guys know now we're getting into the witching hour, so if anybody wants to come for pictures, they're 2 for 1.
Nice!
Yeah, I'll be at my table in a little bit, so